Thank you for joining me on Manna from Heaven with your girl, Sharon. I am so glad you are here. Today, I am going to continue my series called Deliverance and Devastation for Widows, an interview with Becca Sandlin. I hope you loved last week's broadcast, and I know you will just love this series. So let's get started. Come on, don't go nowhere. You have to hear this through.
And I didn't, this sounds funny, but it was almost like, okay, I've been loved so well. I'm probably not going to ever be loved that well again, but I have love to give. And I would love to love someone the way that Jason loved me. It was like, I didn't think that I was going to receive what I ever had. And so fast forward big time after these dating experiences, I will say, and one that lasted a pretty long, well, a few months, I guess that was a long time in that moment in my head. It also helped me to see who I was without Jason, without really, since my kids are from 22 to 19, it was also different because this time I wasn't I was dating without having to factor in who was going to raise my children, who was going to help me raise my children, who was going to be that integral influence in their growing up. This time it was like, whoa, I want someone who will be a great influence and while I'm dating and to honor those values and morals. But this time it's really like, it's about me. What do I want? And yes, well, my children love this man, but not as someone that's shaping them. God has shaped them, and they will continue to grow, but not from this experience with dating. So anyway, when I put myself out there to, and kind of laughing at the same time and looking for amusement in it, that's when, without a ton of detail, just telling you that Georgia Bulldogs, I'm a huge fan of Georgia Bulldogs and a huge fan of the Braves. And, last season was amazing. And so for both, and I love sports, and this guy, my new man, we started dating. We started talking rather because of football. And for the first few conversations, it was all about.
You met him, Rebecca, you met him on Hinge?
No, through Facebook. I dropped Hinge. It was like, okay, that's another thing about me. I couldn't do what a lot of people do and have all this going because I know that these two guys aren't going to see this Zoom thing or whatever, our meeting. So I'm not worried about, but I did get two people confused once, and I thought, oh gosh, I can't do this. And then I tried to cover it up, and I really felt bad. And so I'm like, I'm not one of these that can like have all this multiple stuff going on. And so I could not, I'm like, I can't do these different platforms either. So I stuck with this Facebook dating because, like I said, they can't even get into I'm sure people that want to and can hack things, could, but on the surface level, your profile is not known. Your last name is not known. You put out there as much information, that's all they get. And like, they can't even send you a picture or a meme or anything until you are ready to take it off that site, And so, so our conversations were about sports, and that was so comforting because the two of us like really enjoy sports and missed it all during quarantine. And so it was so exciting for Georgia to come back off this season. And I swear it's so funny to tell you this because this was probably one of my first things that I said after saying, "Are you watching the game?" Like, I think he said that to me or something. "Are you watching the game? Go Dogs." And then, "Are you watching it?" I think I said, not like, "Hi, I'm Becca, blah, blah, blah." But it was, yes. And if our offense could get in line with our defense, we will have this game. But right now, and like, I was just like, and it was so funny because like, he just picked up right there. And it wasn't till a few conversations later that we started like navigating who we were. And I enjoyed that so much because of just that was something I lost too with Jason, was the camaraderie of just having like that best friend to watch the games with and to, do all the, and that was fun. And it was somebody that didn't feel threatening, wasn't asking me, "What are you wearing?" All this, whatever. And our first date was actually in October when the Braves had the first home game of the World Series.
So this is the first time you actually saw each other in person.
Yes.
Okay.
And the funniest thing is the first thing he said to me in person was, "Oh my gosh, you look better in person." And that never happens. And that made me laugh so hard because of and that never happened.
Yeah.
So we laughed about the catfishing because, I'm like, well, but before we ever met in person, he made it so clear that he not only respected me needing to talk about Jason or me being a widow, but he actually, when we did share information or whatever, and he had seen a video that I had posted, and I guess I tagged Jason in it or something, even though, because there's still people that go to Jason's page and how that works, that he went and he said something to me in text about like, "I hope this isn't weird. I'm not a stalker," something like that about, but your husband seemed like an amazing man. I went and I read his story. And
this is before you saw him, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
And he was talking about just like not being able to relate to me, not trying to find the right things to say, but in different words, I can't remember his own words, but pretty much allowing me to hold space for what was needed to navigate this, and that he would, if given the opportunity, that he would be there for me in whatever capacity that was. And one of the things though that really impressed on me was that we talked about God, but not in a way that he had a churchy answer or that he was trying to lay out this, be impressed with his performance of being a Christian. I've been down that road, and I was just so impressed by his humility and his able to say, "Well, here's my story. I'm just learning as I go," and there was just a comfort in him being so real and raw. And I had, at the time, I was videoing a lot of my devotions from a book that actually I got at the Widows Retreat called it's sitting right here, but I Hear His Whisper. And it's so good. It's like 365 days, like a regular devotion book. It was just, it's just very good. And he said, again, this was before we met, he was like, one of the very first conversations, he watched the videos and he was like, "Wow, it's so refreshing because you're, authentic when you're talking about this." He said, "Guess what I did today?" And I don't know, and he sent me a screenshot of going on Amazon and buying this devotion book.
Yeah.
And he said, I have been looking for one, and it's just cool because listening to you talk about it, I wanted to, I just really wanted that book. And so, and he did, and we would talk about it, for a while. And I didn't want, I've been in the situation before where you get on a track of like checking off the boxes, like let's do a devotion together, check, but it becomes routine. It doesn't become, it takes away from your personal journey with Jesus, and it becomes like this highlight of your relationship.
Like thing you do.
Yeah, like like it's a good thing for your relationship, but until you are using that as kind of like a label to it, or I don't know, label's not the right word, but where it just takes away from the personal growth.
Yeah.
And you're trying to say, hey, look what we do, like, oh, we do a devotion together, check, that kind of thing. And so
more religious instead of fellowship even.
Yes. So there were things like that just showed an authenticity and a vulnerability as well, and praying together, and just so many things that are unique to our relationship from early on that showed me I was safe, that my emotions and my journey was safe with this man. And but I will tell you,
how do your kids feel about him?
I'm sorry?
How do your children feel about him?
They really like him. That's a big part. And because at Christmas, so we started, our first date was like the end of October, and he did come to our Christmas celebration. Like from that first date, I knew, and he knew, because we had also talked before that moment, a lot. And I knew that this was somebody I wanted to get to know. Now, did I know anything about like, oh, this is the, who God has? No. And I still navigate that, but I know that what God is showing me daily is growing my heart towards him. And but my kids, going back to my kids, there's a lot about him that reminds us of a lot of the good things about Jason. I did not seek him out for that, but I did have to prepare the kids that I was like, okay, I didn't realize this until there were like little things that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is like Jason. And, a guy that you're dating and getting to know does not want to know that. They want to have their own space. And so it was really hard for me not to say, oh, that's just like
Becca, you didn't do that, right?
Do what?
You didn't say that remind me of Jason, did you?
In some ways I would, because it was just like, it was comforting that I felt like, that's the messy part, because I would think, how much am I allowed to share? And I know that he says, this is your journey, and I'm here, and whatever you need, but we weren't at okay, let me come back to that. So going back to the kids, it wasn't like, it was a, like, it was just a gradual meeting them at different times, and they all really, he has an amazing sense of humor and makes us all laugh. And it's just, they can see me laughing and with their ages, they were more concerned about me, I guess, and so they know he's not raising them either. And so it was kind of like, okay, mom really likes this guy, and we know mom, and we know that she's not just letting anyone into our world.
That's right.
And because we would call ourselves the healthy Sandlin 6-pack. Healthy, not as in like our our physical health, healthy as in it not being like 6-pack of alcohol, like the healthy 6-pack. And so that was another identity that I truly grieved, because I loved saying we were the Sandlin 6-pack. So like our kids being a blended family, it could be a train wreck, because their ages now are 22, will be 20 in July, will be 19 in July, and 17 will be 18 in November. So I mean, it could have been a train wreck, but they love each other. And so it wasn't like, okay, this is me just dating. Like I knew he would be part of our world, right. And they really have taken to him. And matter of fact, a couple of months ago, my daughter said, "Are you done dating? Like, I really like him." And I mean, like, I hope that you're done dating, and that was huge. Mm-hmm. And like one son is in the Army. Mm-hmm. As a blended family, Jason's kids being 22 and almost 18. So it's 2019, 17. Right. But the 19 that will be 19, he's in Maryland in the Army. And so he hasn't spent as much time with him. Mm-hmm. And Jason's children, that's been a loss too, because of their ages. They've kind of spread their wings. And even though I had them with me as mom and raising them in the circumstances, it was just Jason and I, mm-hmm. Not split time, then they were 9 and 6. And so it's been different for them to grieve alongside of me, mm-hmm. in their young adult life. And being in the Army, I know that he's finding identity in a lot of that, and I don't have as much of that's hard, because I miss that relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And then Tiara, the oldest, she has a very solid, stable, we're thankful for this relationship, but she's also in nursing school. Mm-hmm. And as she would say, it's kicking her butt, but she is thriving and she is doing well. And so I'm so proud of where they are. Mm-hmm. We're just not tight anymore in that, but they have met him and they like him. But for me, for them towards me, it's kind of, it's not, they don't feel a betrayal. I think they just are like, well,
it's
my
different.
dad's not here. Yeah. But for Lauren and JD, my kids that are 17 and she'll be 19 in July. 20 in July, sorry. Mm-hmm. But they are very much a part of like the activities that we do together. And he has a 15-year-old girl that I just adore, and praise the Lord, she adores me. And so we have all done things together, and his parents, he's really close to his parents. So there's a lot that God has just really affirmed in the forward relationship. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to hold. I learned this word through watching another widow and talk about this, but the duality, mm-hmm. and know that it's okay to hold all of these memories and my precious roles that I honored as a mom and as a caregiver and as a wife, and just this life that came hitting a brick wall one day, that till death do us part, and then of course, right after that was COVID and quarantine, and everybody's world was spinning, and people were just trying to grasp at whatever and having their own feelings about things, and just big things that were going on during that time, and knowing that I had, Jason was always my earthly anchor. God was always our anchor. I won't just say spiritual anchor, but our anchor, our family, our devotions, our family time. Mm-hmm. We'd have family devotions. So I don't want to let that go. And I know
I
that,
understand.
you know, but I know I don't have to.
Mhm.
I know that that's going to always be a huge part of who I have become, and a part that I embrace because I'm proud of that woman that worked hard through those moments, and proud of that woman that didn't give up through an addiction and held on with her husband suffering and struggling. And I'm proud of that mom that would wake up in the middle of the night in obedience to the Lord and go pray over my children's doors, you know, like I'm proud of that woman. And I cannot let that go, because that is part of the pieces that, and that's part of the pieces that have continued to keep me strong to go forward. But to add in a new love and make a sacred space for that relationship as it should be, and have permission to hold a sacred space for a love that learning that I can hold both of those things, and that grief is not something that it's gonna let me see, how can I say this?
Trans something.
Yeah, it's gonna continue to transform and look different. But in listening to other widows, and that I've just gleaned so much wisdom, that grief is going to be a part of my life journey, because that love that I held so deep and that became
not the intensity and the pain of it. Do you think?
Right. So that's what the goodness, like your book in Good Morning, like the growth from grief. But will I always love Jason? Yes. And will there be things like Cliff Bars in the grocery store that I look at and I think, I'm not buying this peanut butter Cliff Bars. You're the only one that would eat them and hide them in the closet because you didn't want the kids to find them. You know, like I will have those moments that will trigger a memory. And that doesn't mean I will feel paralyzed in that moment.
Would you call that grief, though? Would you call that grief, or you just remembering something that
I think because it will be attached to, I say this thinking about this with my brother, like there are things I think, like in learning to grieve well, like you said, that when people grieve, like at the beginning when you said they can't find something and they're like, you know, that I think in transforming that to, you know, have less weight over my life, have less identity, the grief will not have the same great identity in my life. But I will be sad when when my kids get married and Jason is not there to support that and walk them down the aisle. And I will say this too, if there's a widow listening and you feel guilty because when you say things like that and someone says, oh, but they are there, and you want to smack them in the face, and I'm not a violent person, you just shove them away.
You're just going to give them a little
Allow yourself to feel that, because in that moment, you don't need someone to remind you that they're in heaven. You know that. You want their presence. You want their flesh. You want them to experience what you're experiencing. And so not the pain, but in a celebratory moment, because they were part of growing those kids into that moment. And you want them there. You want to experience all that with them. And so I think that's what I mean by there will be moments, and like when they have babies one day, you know, if the Lord blesses them in those ways, or trials, tribulations, whatever, not having Jason's presence in the good and the bad and the ugly and the things that, you know, parenting those moments together, I will grieve that, but it will not have a storm cloud over my life. You know, it will not carry a weight. I will give myself permission to be sad in those moments, but also to grieve in a way that I can say, God, thank you that although this makes me a little sad that he's not here, you have given us the promise of the hope of heaven.
Yes,
And
yes.
you have delivered me from the pain. And on the cross, I mean, the minute you resurrected Jesus, well, the minute that Jesus proclaimed it is finished, you took away the sting of death. You know, all of these things.
I understand what you're saying, because I think what came to mind, the scripture that came to mind when you were talking, where God says, tells us not to grieve as unbelievers, as though we have no hope, as though we won't see our loved ones again. And so the situation with, your child, him being here for a child's wedding and stuff, I mean, I understand that, because they won't be here, but we're not grieving as though, it's over, and it's like that, and the whole,
Right.
And so it's different, but it's not the intensity of no hope.
There you go. That's so good to bring that verse into it, because that's exactly what I guess I'm trying to say, is that I want to be able to still know and give myself permission that in the flesh, I do not have to stuff memories down to preserve me, really, to preserve life, that I can feel all of those emotions, and even simultaneously, and know that's part of living, but know that grief in law, it's just like I said, with my brother and other friends that I've lost. And, there are moments that I just kind of will get a little bit sad when there's some triggers, but like you said, I don't grieve without a hope. I don't grieve without, and I think you can grieve and you can also experience complete joy at the same time. And that's that duality part of even dating. I can have this joy that, oh my gosh. Oh, and let me just say this. So I've also had to give myself permission that this doesn't take away from any way that Jason loved me. But Derek, the guy that I know that God sent into my life, like, he loves me so well.
Wow. We will stop here and be back next week. Thank you, Becca Sandlin, for working with me on this new series, Widows, Devastation, Deliverance and Devastation. I'm going straight to the deliverance part because that's as a result of it. But it's called Deliverance and Devastation, and it's geared towards widows. I hope you are all excited as I am, because I am so excited about this. So you better stay tuned and you better come back. See you soon.